You're too curious for your own good. Starting Monday, you'll have helpers, 5 of them, to make sure you stay focused on what matters. Those words didn't sting at first. They burned slowly, like poison spreading through veins. I replayed them every night for weeks, lying awake while my husband slept peacefully beside me. Helpers. He called them helpers. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with scissors. Like I was dangerous, simply for asking where $400,000 went. But here's what kept me awake those nights. It wasn't anger. It was the image of Benton, a 53-year-old machine operator, climbing a 30-foot ladder with a harness so worn I could see threads hanging loose. It was the sound of Louisa asking me for the 7th time when the new gloves would arrive, her fingers wrapped in duct tape because the fabric had worn through to skin. It was knowing that 800 people walked into that building every morning, trusting me to keep them safe, and I had failed them. Not because I didn't care, because someone made sure I couldn't. What would you do if speaking up meant being watched every second of every day? When asking one question turned your life into a surveillance operation? Before we go further into what happened next, I want to say something. If you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever watched someone with authority crush the truth just because they could, this story matters. Hit that like button if you're still with me. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever been in a situation where speaking up felt dangerous, and subscribe, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just about what he did to me. It's about what I did back. And I promise you won't see it coming. My name is Nadine. I'm 37 years old, a mother of 2 girls aged 9 and 6, and for the past 8 years, I worked as head safety coordinator at a manufacturing facility that produces industrial machinery parts. I'm not special. I didn't go to some fancy university. I worked my way up from being a floor technician, learning every bolt, every wire, every regulation. People say I'm stubborn. My husband calls it determined. My mother always said I got it from my grandmother, who once sat outside a government office for 12 days straight until they processed her late husband's pension paperwork. Maybe it's in my blood, this inability to let injustice just sit there, comfortable and unchallenged. The thing about me is I notice details. Always have. As a kid, I could tell when my father had a bad day at work before he even spoke, just by the way he set down his keys. I could tell when my daughters were getting sick 2 days before symptoms showed, just by subtle changes in their energy. This skill made me excellent at my job. I spotted hazards before accidents happened. I caught equipment failures before they became fatal. That same skill is exactly what made me a problem. 3 months before my boss assigned those 5 watchers, life felt normal. I drove to work at 6:30 each morning, stopped at a small family-owned coffee shop where the owner, an elderly man named Tomas, knew I took my coffee with cream and 1 sugar. I'd arrive at the facility by 7, do my rounds, check in with department heads, review incident reports, and plan safety training sessions. My daughters had their routines. My husband, Daniel, worked as an elementary school teacher. We had Friday movie nights and Sunday morning pancakes. Nothing extraordinary, just life. The quarterly budget meeting happened on a Tuesday in March. 12 people sat in that room. Department heads, the plant manager, the financial controller, and my boss, who served as the facility director. His name was Caldwell, and he'd held that position for 6 years. People respected him. He gave speeches about worker welfare and company values. He approved birthday cakes for employees and sent flowers when someone's family member died. On paper, he was exactly what a leader should be. The financial controller, a nervous woman named Piper, who always clicked her pen repeatedly during presentations, walked us through budget allocations, infrastructure upgrades, raw material costs, equipment maintenance, employee benefits. Then she reached my department. Safety and compliance, she said, her pen clicking 3 times. 400,000 allocated last quarter. Current expenditure shows full utilization. I looked at my notes. Full utilization meant the equipment I'd requested should have arrived. The harness systems rated for high-altitude work. The upgraded ventilation units for the chemical processing area. The fire suppression installations for the new eastern wing. The industrial-grade protective gear for welding stations. None of it had come. I raised my hand. Piper, can you clarify what that expenditure covered? I haven't received delivery confirmations for most of the approved items. The room went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of people thinking. the uncomfortable quiet of people wishing someone hadn't spoken. Piper's pen clicking accelerated. The purchase orders went through. I can send you the documentation. I'd appreciate that, I said. Because workers keep asking me when equipment arrives, and I don't have answers. Caldwell smiled. He had this way of smiling that looked warm but felt empty, like painted-on sunshine. Nadine, sometimes there are supply chain delays. These things take time. We're monitoring it. For $400,000 worth of critical safety equipment, over 3 months? I kept my voice level, professional. That seems unusual. I'll look into it personally, he said, still smiling. Let's move on to the next item. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. People filed out quickly, avoiding my eyes. Piper gathered her papers and left without her usual small talk. I stayed behind, organizing my own notes. When Caldwell approached, that's when he said it. Those words that changed everything. You're too curious for your own good. Starting Monday, you'll have helpers, 5 of them, to make sure you stay focused on what matters. Helpers, I repeated, a special support team. They'll ensure you're maximizing your efficiency. Think of it as professional development. He left before I could respond. I sat alone in that empty room, my notebook open to a page listing 17 different pieces of missing safety equipment, and I understood something clearly. I wasn't getting help. I was getting handled. That weekend, I told Daniel about it. We sat on our back porch while the girls played in the yard. Spring evening light filtered through trees, birds singing, everything peaceful. I felt like I was describing someone else's life. 5 people just to watch you? Daniel frowned. That's not normal. None of this is normal. $400,000 doesn't just vanish. What are you going to do? I watched our youngest daughter, Mila, push her sister on the swing set. They laughed. That pure sound children make when the world still feels safe. I don't know yet, I said. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I came to work at my usual time, bought my usual coffee from Tomas, walked into the building expecting something dramatic. Instead, I found 5 people sitting in the break area near my workspace. Caldwell introduced them cheerfully, like we were all joining a fun new team-building exercise. Nadine, meet your support team. Orlin will assist with documentation. Margot handles floor inspections. Jace covers compliance cross-checks. Yolanda manages communication protocols. And Finch rotates between all positions for comprehensive coverage. They smiled at me. Professional smiles. Empty smiles. What exactly will they be supporting? I asked. Everything, Caldwell said. They're here to help you succeed. What he meant was, they're here to make sure you stop asking questions. The first day, I tried working normally. Orlin sat 3 feet from my workspace. A young man, maybe 25 years old, typing on his laptop. Every time I picked up my phone, he noted it. Every time I spoke to someone, he recorded it. I went to the production floor to check ventilation issues in Sector 4. Margot followed. Not obviously. She stayed back about 20 feet. But she was there. Always there. Lunchtime came. I heated up leftover pasta in the break room microwave. Jace appeared, making himself coffee, casual conversation about weather and weekend plans. Except he didn't leave when his coffee finished. He sat nearby, scrolling through his phone, glancing up every few minutes. I needed to use the bathroom. Yolanda was in the hallway when I came out. Coincidence? Maybe. Except it happened the next 5 times too. By the end of that first week, fear had moved into my chest permanently. Not the sharp fear of immediate danger, the grinding fear of being trapped, of being powerless. I stopped talking to coworkers about anything meaningful. I stopped asking questions in meetings. I smiled and nodded and did exactly what was expected. At home, I became quiet. Daniel noticed immediately. "Why are you so quiet lately?" he asked during dinner one night. "Just tired," I lied. But lying to my husband felt like swallowing glass. We'd been together 15 years. We didn't lie to each other. Yet, how could I explain that my workplace had become a prison? That 5 people documented my every breath? That asking about missing money had turned me into someone who needed constant monitoring? The girls asked why I seemed sad. "Mommy's just working on some hard problems," I told them. Hard problems. As if that explained anything. Week 2 arrived, then week 3. I learned their patterns. Orlin worked 7 to 3. Margot did 8 to 4. Jace preferred 9 to 5. Yolanda worked the 10 to 6 shift. Finch rotated, unpredictable, filling gaps. They thought they were watching me. They didn't realize I was studying them. Because here's the thing about being watched constantly. You learn to see without appearing to look. You develop awareness that runs deeper than observation. I knew when Orlin went to the bathroom, always at 10:15 and 2:30. I knew Margot took her break at 11, sitting in her car for exactly 15 minutes. I knew Jace checked his personal email during lunch, always looking slightly guilty about it. I knew Yolanda called someone, probably a boyfriend, every afternoon at 4:30, stepping outside where she thought no one noticed her smile. And I knew Finch, 32 years old, former military, methodical and thorough. He was the dangerous one, the one who actually paid attention instead of just going through motions. During those early weeks, I didn't fight. I didn't protest. I became exactly what they wanted: compliant, quiet, focused on paperwork and routine tasks. But in my mind, I was working differently now. I stopped asking questions out loud. I started finding answers in silence. Week 3, something clicked. I was reviewing public property records for an entirely unrelated reason, checking ownership details on a nearby lot where we were considering expanding the facility. I searched property databases as part of due diligence work. While navigating the system, I wondered something. Just curious. Nothing official. I searched Caldwell's name. 17 properties appeared. Luxury vacation homes, each one purchased within the past 2 years. Total value, over $8 million. Except they weren't in Caldwell's name. They were registered to his cousin, a man named Thorne, who, according to social media profiles and basic background searching, hadn't held a job in 5 years. I stared at my screen. Orlin sat nearby, typing away, unaware. My heart accelerated, but I kept my face neutral. 17 properties, 2 years. I pulled up our safety budget history. The timeline matched. Every time a large safety allocation got approved, within weeks, another property appeared in Thorne's name. That's when I understood. The money wasn't simply stolen. It was laundered through a scheme so obvious that no one looked, because no one thought to connect workplace safety budgets to real estate empires. I needed to know more, but I couldn't search from work, couldn't risk anyone seeing. So I waited until I got home that evening. After dinner, after helping the girls with homework, after Daniel fell asleep watching television, I sat in our home office with the door closed and started digging. Shipping manifests are public record if you know where to look. Purchase orders for government-contracted facilities require transparency documentation. Import and export databases track container movements. I spent 4 hours that night, then 4 more the next night, then every night that week, piecing together what Caldwell had done. He ordered the safety equipment through legitimate suppliers. Everything looked proper on paper. The equipment arrived at our facility's receiving dock. But within days, sometimes hours, that same equipment got resold to overseas buyers at 60% of original price. Lost money on paper. Terrible business decision. Except those losses became tax write-offs for the company. Meanwhile, the cash from resales went somewhere untraceable, eventually surfacing as property purchases in Thorne's name. The facility claimed poverty. Workers used broken, dangerous equipment. Caldwell and his cousin built an empire. $2 billion over 6 years. Not just from our facility, from 17 different plants using the exact same method. I sat back in my chair at 3 a.m, documentation spread before me, and I started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind that comes when reality becomes so absurd you can't process it any other way. My husband found me like that, laughing and crying simultaneously in the blue glow of the monitor. "Nadine, what's wrong?" I looked at him. This good man who taught second graders to read, who made pancake shapes for our daughters, who believed the world generally worked the way it should. How could I explain that I'd just uncovered a massive criminal operation, and the proof sat in public databases anyone could access, but no one ever looked? "Daniel," I said slowly, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen to the whole thing before you respond." I told him everything. He listened, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to anger to fear. When I finished, he sat silent for a long moment. "You need to report this," he finally said. "To who?" "Caldwell runs the facility. His people watch me constantly. If I go to local authorities, he'll know before I finish the conversation." "Then what?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out." Over the following weeks, I worked 2 lives. During the day, I was compliant Nadine. I filed reports, conducted routine safety checks, smiled at my watchers, never raised suspicion. I was so cooperative that even Finch seemed to relax slightly. But at night, I built something else. I mapped every connection, every transaction, every property, every shipment. I created documentation that even someone with no background in finance or law could understand. I made it airtight. Week 9 arrived, and I did something simple, something that seemed completely unrelated. I joined the local community board that reviews business permits and safety compliance. It was volunteer work, public service. The watchers noted it in their reports, but saw no threat. Why would they? The board dealt with small business licenses and neighborhood zoning issues. Nothing that touched Caldwell's operation. Except the board included someone named Iris, 68 years old, retired bookkeeper, sharp as broken glass. And 15 years ago, her son died in a workplace accident at a different facility. I met her at my second board meeting. We talked afterward, just casual conversation about why we volunteered. She told me about her son, 26 years old, killed when scaffolding collapsed. The company claimed they'd purchased proper equipment. Investigation showed the equipment never existed. No one ever faced charges. The company paid a fine. Life moved on. Except for Iris. Life stopped that day. I do this work, she said quietly, because maybe I can prevent another mother from losing her child the way I lost mine. I looked at this woman, her eyes carrying 15 years of grief, and I made a decision. Iris, I said, I need to tell you something, and I think you're going to want to sit down. We sat in the parking lot of that community center for 3 hours. I showed her everything on my laptop, every document, every property, every transaction. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just absorbed it all with the focus of someone who'd been waiting 15 years for this exact moment. The facility where my son died, she said finally. What was its name? I pulled up my expanded research, showed her the list of 17 facilities using the same scheme. Her son's former workplace was number 4 on that list. He died, she whispered, because someone stole the money that should have saved his life. Yes, she looked at me. What do you need? I need people who care more about justice than fear. I need connections I don't have. I need this to become bigger than just me. Iris nodded slowly. I know 46 other families, parents, spouses, children, all lost someone to preventable workplace accidents. We meet monthly. Support group. What if I brought them your research? That would help. What if they brought their own facility records? What if we cross-referenced everything? I felt something shift inside my chest. The fear that had lived there for weeks started transforming into something sharper, harder, more focused. Then we'd have something impossible to ignore. Iris smiled. Not a happy smile, a dangerous smile. Then, let's build something impossible to ignore. Week 11 arrived. The government scheduled their annual inspection. Random timing, pure coincidence. But by then, I knew exactly what was coming. Because for 10 weeks, while 5 people watched my every move during the day, I'd spent my nights building something they never saw coming. 47 families, 8 manufacturing facilities, coordinated documentation, journalists contacted, legislators informed, lawyers mobilized, not by me alone, by a network of people who'd been waiting years for someone to finally connect the pieces. The night before the inspection, Daniel found me in our bedroom, packing my work bag. Tomorrow's the big day, he said. You nervous? I looked at my hands. Steady, completely steady. The fear had burned away entirely, leaving only clarity. Not anymore, I answered. What's going to happen? Justice. Finally, he hugged me. I'm proud of you, and I'm terrified for you. Me too, I admitted, both at the same time. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, made coffee, kissed my sleeping daughters, drove to work through familiar streets that felt different now, like I was seeing them for the last time. Tomas handed me my usual order. You look different today, he observed. Lighter. Maybe I am, I said. I walked into the facility at 7. The 5 watchers were already positioned. Orlin at his usual spot, Margot preparing for floor rounds, Jace reviewing something on his tablet, Yolanda checking her phone, Finch watching me with that careful attention he always had. I smiled at them. A real smile. Because after 12 weeks of being watched, today, they were finally going to see something worth reporting. The government inspector arrived at 9. and everything I'd built in silence was about to become very, very loud. The plant silent, except for the distant hum of machines, the inspector's shoes tapping a steady rhythm as he surveyed the production floor. Caldwell trailed him, offering reassurance in the language of someone used to being believed. The 5 watchers lingered nearby, notebooks poised, trying to appear natural. The inspector paused, fingers grazing the harness rack where new equipment should have hung. Instead, only battered, faded pieces remained. "These harnesses should have been replaced months ago," the inspector said, tone mild but carrying weight. Caldwell replied, "We're waiting on shipment. Back-ordered. Supply issues everywhere these days." The inspector's brow furrowed. "Strange. Customs records show your shipment arrived 4 months ago. Where did the equipment go?" Caldwell faltered, caught between insisting on his lie and the mounting evidence. The 5 watchers shifted, uncertain. I felt their nerves from across the room. I cleared my throat, and every gaze snapped to me. I hadn't spoken in 12 weeks, had barely existed except as a routine to be checked. "You might want to check resale manifests from the Port Authority. Those shipping container numbers match our purchase orders. That equipment was re-exported overseas within days. And," I continued, heart thumping, "if you check property tax records for the last 2 years, you'll find 17 homes bought in the name of Caldwell's cousin. The amounts match the resale cash flows, almost to the day." Nobody moved. The inspector read the room, then glanced at Caldwell, who tried and failed to maintain his composure. Before he could deny it, the door opened. 3 people stepped in, federal investigators from the Criminal Fraud Division. One addressed Caldwell directly. "We have some questions about shipments, budgets, and the use of company resources. This is not a courtesy call." The 5 watchers froze, their faces giving away the realization that this story was much bigger than anything they'd been ordered to suppress. But nobody expected what happened next. The inspector turned to me. "How long have you known about this?" 12 weeks, I replied, "and I'm not the only one." I handed him a slim folder. Inside, a roadmap of documents, connecting every missing dollar from every facility in the region, matching resale contracts and real estate papers. Behind those papers were 47 letters from families who had lost someone in a preventable accident. Their signatures a quiet roar demanding justice. The investigators in the hallway nodded to a new arrival, an older woman, calm and composed. Iris stepped forward, the pain in her eyes clear, but the steel behind them unbreakable. "I'm here on behalf of the Regional Parent Survivor Network. We've cross-referenced these findings with hundreds of incident records. There's nothing left to explain." The entire building seemed to hold its breath. Caldwell looked at his 5 watchers, at the inspector, then at me. And for the first time, power shifted, a balance that would never tilt back. As Caldwell and his cousin were escorted out, the consequences unfolded quickly. The properties were seized. Both men faced a list of charges stretching longer than a maintenance report. The special team of 5, realizing the scope of their own implication, began offering testimony in exchange for reduced charges. They spoke publicly, their statements stacking another layer atop the mountain of evidence. But the change didn't stop there. Over the following months, the network Irene helped unite forced policy changes at the highest levels, new safety compliance laws, funding transparency, and mandatory independent audits. Every worker could now access spending tracking in real time. Legislators couldn't ignore the stories, the numbers, or the pain on their own constituents' faces. 8 months after the inspection, the new law passed unanimously. I stepped down from my post and moved to a facility with integrity and leadership that respected the lives behind the numbers. The old fears faded, replaced by pride and a steady, enduring sense of resolve. No title, no threat, no humiliation could strip away what I reclaimed by refusing to let injustice slide into silence. And every evening, when I watched my daughters playing, I remembered the people who didn't get to watch their loved ones come home, and the fights that still lie ahead. If you're still watching, thank you. Your support makes stories like mine impossible to ignore. Like this video if you believe the truth deserves oxygen. Comment if you've ever stood alone against something that felt unmovable. And please, subscribe, because together, our voices can build something so strong, no one will ever be able to ignore it again.